Hi, I'm Samantha Nolan-Smith. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to speak today about time, and I wanted to particularly speak about recognizing that different life lessons, different experiences, different projects are all coming to fruition in their own time. So I've been reading a book called The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a beautiful book, which I highly recommend. And in it, the protagonist, whose name's Alma, speaks about different types of time as she sees them. She says, Alma had determined that there was such a thing as human time, which was a narrative of limited mortal memory based on the flawed recollections of recorded history. The most striking characteristic of human time was that it moved with such amazing quickness. It was a snap of the finger across the universe. Most unfortunately for Alma, her mortal days, like everyone's mortal days, fell within the purview of human time. Thus, she would not be here long, as she was most painfully aware. She was a mere blink of existence, as was everyone else. At the other end of the spectrum, there was divine time, an incomprehensible eternity in which galaxies grew and where God dwelled. She knew nothing about divine time. It was time outside of time, so she left it alone. Nonetheless, she sensed that it existed, and she suspected that it hovered in some kind of massive, infinite stasis. Close to home, returning to Earth, Alma also believed in something she called geological time. Natural history fell into this category. Geological time moved at a pace that felt nearly eternal, nearly divine. It moved at the pace of stone and mountains. Geological time was in no hurry and had been ticking along, some scholars were now suggesting, far longer than anyone had yet surmised. But somewhere between geological time and human time, Alma posited there was something else, moss time. By comparison to geological time, moss time was blindingly fast, for mosses could make progress in 1,000 years that a stone could not dream of accomplishing in a million. But relative to human time, moss time was achingly slow. To the unschooled human eye, moss did not even seem to move at all. But moss did move, and with extraordinary results. Nothing seemed to happen, but then, a decade or so later, all had changed. It was merely that moss moved so slowly that most of humanity could not track it. And when I read this, I thought, this is wonderful. This understanding of time is wonderful. Because so often we're so busy and we're so impatient and we're in such a rush to get things done, and we can't understand why we put out for something and then it doesn't manifest instantaneously. But when we take a step back and we realize we all have our lessons to learn in this life. And each of them is progressing in its own appropriate time span. Some of our lessons will be operating in moss time. And so we'll feel like, oh my God, nothing has happened. I keep doing this clearing. I keep finding new beliefs and thoughts and clearing them out, or doing whatever yoga class after yoga class after yoga class, or whatever it is. And we think we're not seeing any progress. And then all of a sudden, a decade later, we'll look back and think, my God, I'm a different person. But the change had been operating in moss time. Sometimes what we're working on is something across lifetimes. And you may or may not believe in, reincarnation and so forth, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to at all. But what I have found in working with people is that they access memories from lifetimes that are not of this time and space, this moment in time and space. Whatever those memories are, whether they're from the collective consciousness or from that soul's journey through eternity, I'm not really interested in having that debate. I'm interested in the fact that we as conscious beings are carrying certain experiences, both of this lifetime and from other lifetimes, it would seem. And so some of our lessons are not even lessons that we're going to really nail in this lifetime. But we are hopefully going to make progress with them. And we might have 10, 15, 20 more lifetimes before we really get to the nub of it. And then other things will be very quick. They'll be more in human time. We'll make a change in our life and we'll see it the next day. My husband's a scientist and he'll often think of the world in that geological time frame, which really gives perspective to anything that's going on in our own lives and kind of the small and minute nature of it, really. And he'll point out to me certain things that have been happening in the rocks or in the trees or in the soil that I, as a non-scientist, just don't see. But which reminds me every time he does that the world is perpetually changing, irrespective of whether I can see it or whether I notice it. It's happening anyway. And then my preference is to be connected to and aware of, to the extent possible in human form, divine time, and to exist in that space, to have all these other layers of our being, but to rest in divine time and to sit in the trust of that. And that, the simplest way to describe that is in the now, that it's eternal and expansive and immediate and present. And when we can exist in that space, then we can trust that all is unveiling exactly as it's supposed to be, that we don't need to push, that we can sit back and actually enjoy the unveiling of our lives and participate from that perspective. So perhaps you'll take a moment just to consider in your own life, where have I been pushing? Could this be something that's really operating in Moss time? And can I be okay with that? Or is this more of a geological kind of thing? And, I may take much, much longer to really see the fruits of my efforts and investigations. But if you knew that you weren't investing just in this lifetime, but in all of eternity, if you knew that you weren't just investing for yourself, but for all of humanity, would it matter? Would it matter if it happens now or tomorrow or 10 years or 1,000 years? I leave that with you. I hope that has been thought-provoking. And if you liked it, I'd love you to share it with your friends. And come on over and subscribe at Samantha Nolan-Smith so I can share more inquiries, questions, delights about life, work, and spirituality. Thanks very much.